Hi, my name is Scott Hulbert. I'm a VMware Technical Specialist with LRS IT Solutions. Today I'm going to be talking about Site Recovery Manager from VMware. Site Recovery Manager is a product from VMware which helps customers who virtualized but really don't have an ability to recover that virtualized environment in a new site in the event of a disaster, or allow them to migrate in an orderly fashion. Most customers have a current environment like the following. You have vCenter Server, which manages your environment. You have some virtual machines. You have vSphere. And in the case of this presentation today, we're going to be talking about vSphere 5, some servers, and some shared storage that provides the place for those virtual machines to live and run in your virtualized environment. Now, the Site Recovery Manager will require some foundation items in order to be able to fail over effectively for the site in the event of a failure or in the event of a migration or a planned outage. You need to have vSphere running in the site. You need to have some servers, and they don't necessarily need to be the same capacity unless you're planning on running everything that you run in production in the disaster recovery location. And then you need to have some shared storage. Now, that shared storage also needs to be able to replicate from your production environment to your disaster recovery environment, because the replication is going to be the basis on how those virtual machines get moved from production to the disaster recovery environment. There's two ways that you can go about this replication. You can use storage-based replication, which up until vSphere 5 was the only way that you could replicate from production to disaster recovery. The replication specifics are going to be based on the arrays that you use, whether it's from IBM and the NetApp, EMC, or any of the others. There's going to be specifics that have to be followed in order to replicate from your primary site to your disaster recovery site. The vSphere replication, which is new in vSphere 5, is a host-based replication. So you could be using local storage or disparate, non-matching storage arrays from your production to your disaster recovery location, and it will allow you to replicate. The vSphere replication is good for simpler, smaller environments. You will need to install vCenter Server at the recovery site, and you'll need to have Site Recovery Manager installed at the primary site. Then finally, you'll install Site Recovery Manager at the recovery site. The Site Recovery Manager will also include, if you're using storage-based replication, a storage API which allows the Site Recovery Manager to communicate to the storage arrays. What will happen then is, in the event of a disaster or in a planned migration, the storage replication is stopped. Now, how this happens is the Site Recovery Manager communicates to the storage array, and it will stop the replication from the production to the disaster recovery location. Then from the recovery site, the Site Recovery Manager software communicates with the virtual center, and it will mount the virtual machines that have been replicated over to that location and allow them to be powered on. This is a recovery process that you actually define in Site Recovery Manager, and you can tell Site Recovery Manager to follow certain processes in the event of a failure or a planned migration. If there's going to be a power outage that you know is going to be happening at the primary site, you can fail over to the disaster recovery site in an orderly fashion, one server or application at a time as needed, and as your recovery plans allow for. The other thing is that you can test this environment by bringing up the virtual machines in an isolated environment, and you can do it in the middle of the day because they're not going to be brought up on the production network. They'll be brought up, powered up. You can test the applications in your recovery location to make sure everything operates and functions as you would expect. But they're actually not going to connect to the production network, so they're not going to interfere with anything that's happening in production. That way, you know, in the event of a disaster or a planned migration, that your recovery process will operate as you had planned. This allows for testing very monthly, quarterly, however you need to feel comfortable that you can recover in the event of a disaster or a planned outage. This concludes the presentation on Site Recovery Manager. My name is Scott Hulbert, VMware Technical Specialist for LRS IT Solutions.